Hey guys, so I've been hearing from a lot of women lately that they are unhappy with their treatment plan of birth control. Whether that's from side effects that they're experiencing or that it's just not giving them answers about the actual problem that's happening, or they don't feel like it's actually fixing the problem, like they're taking their birth control and they're still having issues. So for whatever reason, this video today, I'm going to review what I talked about in my last video, which is a little bit about how our reproductive system works. And then I'm going to review, just on a strictly biological level, what birth control was created to do. And I think that will help you understand why birth control is not making you feel better, like completely. But first we have to have an understanding of how our body was created and how everything works before we can get there. Okay, so we have, generally speaking, hundreds of thousands of ovaries. That would be really, really interesting and impressive. No, we have hundreds of thousands of eggs in our ovaries. Every month, generally, one of those undeveloped eggs is selected by a follicle, which is just like a cyst-like thing. It selects one of those eggs and it begins to develop it over the course of a few days. That follicle is producing a really super special, awesome hormone called estrogen. Estrogen is producing that cervical mucus that we see every month. It's a really good thing. It gives us a lot of information about what's going on inside of our bodies, whether it's normal or abnormal. It also has to do with fertility. Okay, so estrogen is being produced by that follicle. Okay, so once that follicle reaches maturity, it ruptures and releases the egg, and that's ovulation. After that happens, the estrogen level drops. And then whatever is left of that follicle that ruptured, called the corpus luteum, produces progesterone. And progesterone supports the cycle after we ovulate. Progesterone is responsible, well, first of all, it stops that mucus. It also creates this thick, rich uterine lining on the inside of our uterus and secretes a super special nutritious fluid so that if a baby was conceived after ovulation, it has somewhere to live and implant on the inside of the uterus. And that lining gives that baby, that newly conceived baby, its long-term life support until it's delivered. If conception and implantation does not happen, the progesterone level drops. That lining that was just built up, thick and rich, that sheds, and that's where we get our periods from. Another really good indication that our bodies are working right. See, our bodies are trying to communicate information to us. It's giving us information through that mucus, through patterns of bleeding, all these different things that can happen, right? And our hormones help us to feel normal, you know? So if either one of those, estrogen or progesterone, is off, you might notice it in some type of symptom where you're not feeling right or whatever. It can be something small or it can be something large that's really affecting our life. So if this affects us enough, we might go to a doctor one day, right? That doctor likely will prescribe you birth control, no matter what the symptom is, right? Whether it's pain, any array of pain, any different kind of bleeding, no bleeding, acne, depression, or I mean, you know what I'm talking about. You name it. Generally, the treatment for that is birth control, okay? Which is interesting because we're all unique, right? So it's not really a surprise if you think of it this way, that birth control is not helping us because we're all created so differently. For example, my progesterone is very low. I have a friend whose progesterone is also very low, but it manifests itself very differently in her than me. But I take the natural progesterone that my body creates to supplement that, to address those issues as best as I can. My friend who has the low progesterone has horrible PMS symptoms and it makes her feel awful. All of a sudden have an accent. It makes her feel a certain way. But supplementing her body with the progesterone that is bioidentical chemically to what her body produces helps her to feel more normal. Because remember, those hormones help us to feel normal. They're there for a good reason. Okay, so what was birth control created to do? First thing, birth control is synthetic hormones that are but not bioidentical. Their chemical structure is similar, or I guess you could also say it's not so similar to the hormones that our bodies create. So it's no wonder that we don't feel right necessarily when we're taking the birth control, because biologically they're changing our natural hormones and essentially just shutting down the system altogether. The next thing, it suppresses that normal natural process of ovulation that is supposed to occur cyclically or regularly within our bodies. It makes unnatural changes to that cervical mucus that is there to give us that information, right, that's going on within our bodies, to where we can't pick up the information that our bodies are giving us to find the answer to the problem. Does that make sense? In addition to bleeding, obviously, you're not going to have the same kind of bleeding on the pill. It's more of a breakthrough bleeding, which is not actually a period at all, because the other thing that the pill does is that it breaks down and thins out, or not break down, it thins out that really thick, rich, progesterone-supported inner lining of the uterus. So again, the patterns of bleeding that we're getting, if we're getting any bleeding, depending on what birth control you're on, it's not giving us information about what's going on inside of our bodies, whether it's normal or abnormal. It's a different kind of bleeding. So birth control was actually created to make us stop working the way that we're supposed to work. It's not actually treating really those underlying issues. You get off the birth control, the problem is still there. If there's a hormonal abnormality that wasn't addressed, that's still there. If there's disease there, there's endometriosis there, that certainly wasn't addressed. There's actually no research to indicate that the endometriosis doesn't continue to grow while you're on the pill or whatever, form of hormonal birth control. So I think these are really, really good things to think about, especially later on down the line if you're ready to start a family, so to speak, and you want to, get off the birth control in order to start trying to get pregnant. Well, again, likely those symptoms are going to come back. The problem was never really fully adjusted or treated or addressed or even assessed, really. So especially if that problem is affecting your fertility, that problem's still going to be there, and you're much older now. It's going to be harder to treat that. So I think that this helps us to understand everything in a very logical way. Obviously, I talk a lot about the Creighton model and NAPR technology. That's my choice because in my own personal experience and research, it works the best by far because of its standardization, all of the research that goes into it, and all the extra health benefits. NAPR technology doctors don't prescribe birth control. Those gynecologists, those surgeons don't prescribe birth control because we have something better. Like birth control is not needed anymore. I know that that's hard to get to, especially when we're surrounded by this in our culture. It's kind of hard to believe how much information that we can pull from our cervical mucus and from patterns of bleeding and from a chart. But it's real, and now that I'm becoming a practitioner, I'm beginning to see that a little bit more. But at the same time, I don't want you to think that NAPR technology Creighton has all the answers. It's not this miracle pill or anything that you take that will solve all your problems, okay? But at least we are asking questions. We are doing some investigating, and we're asking the right questions, right? We're actually gathering information from the body to try to understand what's going on, and then we can actually treat the problem. So I hope that gives you a little bit better picture of the value of knowing your body and what the research, how far the research has come to where we can actually tackle these issues in a way that cooperates with our system, to where we don't have to add those synthetic hormones and shut down the system. Like leaving the system on and running will help us to understand it better, whether it's a small hormonal problem or a large problem. Again, please go to CreightonModel.com and naprotechnology.com to get more information. You can go to fertilitycare.org to find a Creighton practitioner or a doctor or medical consultant near you. If you want to start getting some real answers, if you're ready to move on from this birth control thing and find something that will treat the underlying problem, this is for you. Let me know if you have any questions. If not, I'm looking forward to talking to y'all again very soon.